it's going to be, well, why did this fail? Why is this not working? What are the Steelers? Woe is the Steelers sort of thing. And I don't think that is a proper narrative. If he doesn't come back, fine. Then they move on, and whatever happens the rest of the season is what happens. But I think that the media is going to portray it as whatever happens is the result of the Le'Veon Bell situation.
Let's switch to the defense. Would you say Artie Burns is the biggest disappointment so far? And do you think either he'll figure it out or whoever his replacement is, or if he's in a rotation or whatever? Because if you have a bad cornerback, you have a bad defense, and it's looked scary so far this year.
Well, I think Artie Burns has been the biggest disappointment on defense this year. I hate to call the guy out, and I hate to go negative, but he keeps getting burned in key situations. He looks slow, unprepared, and he's not reading the routes of the receivers correctly. Do I think he can turn around? Maybe it's safety. Maybe setting him up high. I don't know, but he just doesn't seem – he reminds me of a young Ike Taylor. Just doesn't have a clue of what's going on out there. Doesn't know what route to read. Eventually, Ike Taylor did become a very good defensive back and a very good corner. It took him a couple of years. Can he do it? Maybe, but he was the number one overall in 2016. It's 2 years later. He's not prepared out there, in my opinion. I don't think he is seeing what he should see, and perhaps maybe it's time for a change in his position.
I think you guys have nailed it on the head. Artie Burns is the biggest disappointment on the defense. But looking at the positive side of the defensive secondary, Joe Hayden, I think, has played really well. I've been really impressed with him. Mike Hilton, for me, has been the most surprising defensive player playing in the nickel and dime packages, that he has really stepped up, and I think he defended about 5 or 6 passes this year already and has really made some key plays in the defensive secondary, and I've been impressed with him. T.J. Watt, I've been impressed with him, the pressure he's been able to apply. Bud Dupree at times has shown flashes, again, of why he was a first-round pick. But again, I don't know if they're getting quite enough pressure with how poor the secondary is, but then that's also related to how poor the secondary is and that they aren't able to cover somebody long enough to create time for them to be able to get that pressure that they need.
I'm going to go with Terrell Edmunds. You very rarely hear his name called on TV. He's got that. He was burned once, and I think it was the Kansas City game where he got burned for a touchdown. But for the most part, you don't hear his name called, and I think that's what you want on a cornerback. When Rod Woodson was in his prime, I don't think you heard Rod Woodson's names called unless he was on kick return, punt return, or he made a key interception. I think that's what you want out of your defensive backfield. You don't want their name called as, oh, he got burned or, oh, he made a mistake. More that you don't hear him at all. And I think Terrell Edmunds is doing that.
And Edmunds had that big pick. I think it was against Atlanta.
Yeah. I know it stinks to rip on somebody for getting hurt, but basically Morgan Burnett has contributed nothing so far, and putting Terrell Edmunds in there as a rookie and basically trial by fire, force him learn on the job. Yeah, he hasn't done bad, so who knows what the defense is going to look like if Morgan Burnett ever gets healthy. But yeah, and then it's Artie Burns is really scary because you could have the greatest defense ever, but those cornerbacks are on an island, and if you have a cornerback that just can't do the job, I don't know. They tried a rotation of him and Cody Sensabaugh, and that doesn't work too well. I'm not sure why they don't try Cam Sutton out there, but it's hopefully he'll figure it out.
Sensabaugh has looked decent when they put him in. I got to give him credit too. He's looked decent.
The one who has he's been hit or miss for me has been John Bostic, a middle linebacker, because they just haven't been able to have that consistency that we've had before, and I think we became used to. Shazier was obviously there, and I think his injury has really hurt their defense more than anybody could have longer. It's opened up so many holes.
Yeah. We will see. So, I know, Jeff, you said 10-5-1. Pip, what do you think? What do you see? What do you predict for the rest of the year for the Steelers?
I'm with Jeff Say, 10-5-1. I don't see them beating the Patriots. I think they're going to dominate over the AFC North. I think that in the playoffs, it's a crapshoot again. Their secondary is weak. Their linebacking core is weak. I don't know. I've heard people blaming Joey Porter. Joey Porter was one of the best linebackers in a stream of very good linebackers that we've seen, and I think he has a lot to teach. So I'm not really willing to pull the pin on that grenade and say he needs to go. I'm scared because I have not seen the explosiveness from their linebacking core that we have in Shazier. You can go back to Jason Gilden. You can go back to any other middle linebacker they've had since then. And I just see them, that's their weaknesses up the middle. And you see teams running on them that they haven't had that in a while. So it's going to be an interesting season. Are we better than a lot of teams out there? Yeah, and I think we're a spoiled fan base. I've said that all along. We are a very spoiled fan base, except when it comes to baseball. I think that we expect championships here in hockey and football, and when they don't meet those expectations, we get mad. And I think that's justified because of the fact that they've been so good in the past. So 10-5-1, I think, is a legitimate goal. Can they get lucky and go 11-4-1? Yeah. But I don't see them beating some of the elite teams. And I think, as Ric Flair said, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And that's where they're stuck. They're not beating the man.
Yep.
Well, I think looking at the schedule, I think Pip pointed out the Patriots. I've got that chalked up as a loss. Looking at Los Angeles on December 13th, likely going to lose that one to the Chargers. The Chargers are hot. They have a lot of weapons, and I could see their wide receivers just shredding our defensive backs. And then the other loss, I think we can beat Carolina. I'm chalking up wins to Cleveland and Baltimore in the next 2 weeks. Then we're against Carolina on November 10th. I think we can beat Carolina. I think we can beat Jacksonville. I know we can beat Denver, beating Oakland. So I'm going to say one of the next two, probably the next loss then would be either to the Saints or the Bengals. It took a Ben Roethlisberger play, copyright, to come back and beat the Bengals, last week with a minute 18 seconds left. I looked at my father-in-law and said they left Ben way too much time. And sure enough, him and AB hooked up and it's in the record books. So could I see the Bengals, having some retribution in the last week of the year and beating them? Yeah, but I could also see Drew Brees just shredding the secondary the second to the last week of the season.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a pretty tough schedule. Sorry, Pep, what were you going to say?
No, I'm good. No, I agree with Jeff Say. I think that I think they can beat the Bengals. I think the Bengals, we have their number. I think the Saints, Drew Brees is a great quarterback and a smart quarterback, and I think he'll shred that secondary, like Jeff Say said. Do I think that they can win? Yeah, there have been instances in the past where that offense can get red hot and just shred everybody, and then all of a sudden we're sitting there going at 14-2. We're going, hey, we're the best. And then all of a sudden you have a fart and a breeze, as they say, and you've got a loss to a Jacksonville at home, and you've got home field advantage that you squander. So we've seen all these scenarios before, and the proof is in the proverbial pudding there. Do you beat the rest of the AFC? You better if you're going to go to the Super Bowl, because I still think the AFC is the class over the NFC. However, if you can't beat the man, you're never going to be the man, and that's where they're at right now. And that's where I see the Steelers. They can't seem to pull the trigger on those key games where they beat the other elite teams in the league.
So do they go in as a wild card, or do they go in as the division champion?
Division champ. I'll give them division champ, but can they beat the Patriots at home? No. They can't beat them on the road? No. Do I think that they can make it to far in the playoffs? Yeah, hey, great. And like I've said in the past, I've lived in Cleveland. I was there for the drive. I was there for many losses. And again, to be an elite team, you've got to beat those elite teams. And I see instances where they just, or the Houston Oilers in the 70s, where they could not beat the Steelers. I see that's where they're at right now because they just can't figure out how to get to that next step. And I'll tie it in with the Penguins, where they can do that. And they have done that. And I think that's the difference between a good franchise and a great franchise.
I think I didn't have a lot of respect for the Bengals or the Ravens, but I think, and I still don't have any respect for the Bengals as far as I think they'll fall apart. I think they're the record is a bit of a fluke, but I think the Ravens are the real deal. I think they're much stronger than we initially thought, and I think that's going to be a really tough race for that division title. I think probably the Steelers will come out ahead, but that's going to be really close. And that game today, did you guys see that Saints game with the Ravens?
Yeah, I saw the kick at the end. That was crazy.
I'm telling you that was a higher power pushing that field goal, that extra point.
Yeah, that's happened a lot this week. Just in the league, I was just watching the Redskins Dallas game, and the Dallas kick just at the very last second tailed the same way that extra point for Baltimore tailed.
Yeah,
it's I don't know what it is with kickers, but I felt like this year we've seen more missed kicks, and Boswell has not been as money as he's been in the past. And I love the guy, and I think he's a great kicker. But I'm just wondering what it is about kickers this year that they're all kind of choking in big situations.
I agree. They've been terrible. I mean, the kickers this year, you've looked at it, and with minus, like we've discussed, is Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay kicker making a 59-yard field goal and winning it for the Buccaneers. Boswell has not lived up to his expectations, and I hate to call him out, but it is what it is. Guy was reliable. Do we see a second coming of Jeff Reed? I hope not, because his off-field antics were rather entertaining, we'll say it at the least. But
guys, I'll take the blame for this one. I picked up Boswell as my fantasy kicker, so it's totally my fault.
Oh, there you go.
I'll flush your head down a toilet.
And on that note, hey guys, thanks a lot. This was awesome. Thanks for being on, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Joey. Appreciate it. Always.
Pleasure.
Thank you for always having us on.
All right, now for our weekly review of the action in the NFL this weekend. I have Coach Warzu. How you doing, sir?
I mean, I'm doing great, especially after a Baltimore loss, and hopefully a Bengals loss puts us right back in the mix here.
All right, let's talk about this Baltimore game, because it's to me absolutely amazing. What was the final? So it was 24-23, right?
24-23, yes,
yeah,
sir.
24-23. So I'm watching this game, and let's see, New Orleans was up 21-17, and they just stopped Baltimore, and they're driving down the field, and there's about 3 or 4 minutes left or something like that, and they're making first downs, and they're just doing just fine, and all they needed to do was run out the stupid clock. But no, they kick a dumb field goal, so it's 24-17, and you're basically saying, I mean, what, have they not paid attention to the NFL this year? Like, you basically the NFL is whoever gets a team last wins or ties it. That's basically the summary of the NFL this year.
Did they not know that was Drew Brees? You were giving the ball to Drew Brees.
Yeah. And then so the Ravens score a quick touchdown, and And it's like, okay, well, this is going to overtime. And I didn't even look.